Okay, so we are recording today with Robert. I've just sat in on a Part 3 assessment with Robert, Harry, so it wasn't like a mock Part 3 where I was a learner, even though I'm sitting in this seat. We had a real life pupil for today, Harry. So Robert, before we just go through the marking sheet and stuff, tell me how you think it went.
It's probably the best one I've ever done, even when I don't just think about the mocks, even the actual Part 3 attempts. When I think back to the first one and even the second one, they're not even comparable.
Okay.
As I've said previously, it was all full instruction.
Yep.
That's all it was.
Yeah.
Even if, you know, there was obviously the examiners mentioned about the first one was the safety critical, and then the second one was not adapting the lesson. But even if I'd have dealt with those things, I don't think it would have made a blind bit of difference, okay, really, because they don't want you to instruct all the time. They want you this client-centered learning, where you need to elicit the information and not just hand it over. Unless they're struggling to give you an answer, then you hand it over.
Okay, so I'll come back to that. Mm-hmm. So if I was to ask you, you've just done a reflection with Harry, so if I was to ask you what you're particularly pleased with today, what you're happy with?
I'll try to get information out of him. Okay. Because it was the biggest thing, as far as I was concerned. And obviously I was prepared to adapt it depending on how he did with regards to making sure he didn't coast. And even though he went fully independent, and then he you know, coasted like, you know, 20 yards from the line, just having that wee chat about it and giving him the option to change it, and he decided no, then he was happy to run with it, and it actually proved to be the best decision. But even if he'd have said, no, give me a wee bit more help, it was all set up to adapt the lesson to what he needed. Yeah, so and one of those things it was lacking. Yeah, it's like night and day.
So two things there, you've mentioned getting information from him. Can you give an example of like a time where you managed to get information from him about something?
When he was having to change lanes. Now obviously there was a couple in there that, you know, was one of them in particular where he kind of froze like a deer in the headlights a bit. But you know, making sure he's checking his mirrors, saying to him, what are you going to do here, you know, look up the road, and even though at those instances where I'm saying look up the road, I'm not even really trying to elicit information from him, it's just trying to get his brain in gear, because if you just left him alone, they'd end up running right up the back of people and slamming on the brakes. So it's really just, it's not even so much about getting answers, it's just about getting them to think, and sometimes that's all you really need to do. Okay. It's by far the hardest thing about this job, is getting these learners to think.
I wouldn't agree. That whole thing about getting them to take responsibility for actions and not relying on the instructor so much. Yes, it's a big jump
thing
in our training.
It's a big jump.
Getting people to take responsibility. Completely agree. So we're happy with that. Attempting to get information from them by using questions, and you're happy with. Sorry, what was the second thing there? Oh yeah, it was what you're describing there is like transfer of responsibility. Once he was happy to take that on, so we did the coasting at the start there, and he wanted the kind of 5 attempts with kind of full talk through of coasting. Yeah, good. Anything else you're pleased with?
I thought I was quite good with my directions, giving them all in good time. It caused a few problems in the sense that by just letting Harry know he was going to be doing something, he was almost thinking then immediately he was going to have to do it there. For example, when we were approaching the other old house roundabout, I was saying to him, okay, up the road, at the roundabout, we're going to go left, go to take the first exit, and his brain's just immediately clicked into gear. And then he's ready to start moving and cross a solid white line straight into a bus lane. But at least I was ready for it. I was watching his wee fingers and he's like that, and I was like, oh, don't you dare. So, you know, that's, you know, it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that respect. But I think I was quite good at giving him the directions in good time, allowing him time to think. But it was a wee bit of an undoing because he almost had too much time to think in some aspects. But it was more just that thing about trying to get him to think about what we want to do, rather than he was just reacting to what I was saying, and he hears left and thinks, I need to be left.
Yeah.
Without really kind of going through that whole thing of looking up the road. So he's quite obvious that he's lacking in planning, but I kind of knew that anyway, and that's how it was a lot of, I was just looking up the road, see what's happening. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? We'll maybe come back to some planning, but we had a chat, we had a kind of chat the other day before this assessment, and you'd mentioned that directions and instructions was something that you wanted to work on today. So you're quite happy that you've made some good progress. I think they were good. I think there was one area that you kind of got yourself into a wee bit of trouble, but we can come on to that a little bit later. Anything else you're happy with?
Dealing with the safety criticals when at that moment where he froze, and he effectively was just going to crash into the back of the parked car.
So intervention.
Yeah, and I could see the car behind us, they were holding us the whole time, so I knew I could just take over the wheel and move them out. So, and obviously in an ideal world we would have pulled over and we would have really got to grips with that, but I could see time was ticking away, and I didn't want to be late for you. But I mean, I wrote that down in my note, and you know, next week when he's out, we'll be going over that whole changing lanes thing, because he was very shaky at that as well. Changing lanes, I thought, and at times I was like, Harry, what are you doing to me here?
Do you remember how we ended up in that situation though?
I asked him what lane we wanted to slide into.
And what did he say?
He says the left lane.
Okay. And what could you see up ahead though?
I could see the parked car.
Okay.
That's how I immediately then says, now what are you going to do about this? And then he froze.
Okay.
I think he had more than enough time to kind of do what he needed to do to check it was safe to move out. I guess in that, I'm thinking that's wrong then.
So I'm thinking what you have is a couple of dots that we're not joining up actually, and this was a bit of a theme throughout the session. So we may as well talk about it just now, because we're talking about you did something well in terms of the intervention. But if I can give you a bit of feedback, I think that if you'd done something differently a little bit earlier, you wouldn't have had to. Because when you've asked your pupil what lane are you going to choose here, you've kind of invited them into that default question, because every time we ask that question, usually like 99 times out of 100, we're trying to nudge them into going left, aren't we? But when you can see there's a parked car up ahead, maybe what he needs in that moment is a little bit of guidance and a little bit of support in his planning, because you mentioned earlier on that awareness and planning was something that he needed a bit of support with, and that was one of the first things I wrote down actually, like 10 minutes in, that his awareness and planning was kind of struggling a wee bit. Remember the first 10 minutes, it felt like all we were saying at times was, what's up ahead, what's up ahead, what's up ahead.
There's something he needs to do better, is get his eyes up the road, not staring at the 10 feet, not looking at the back of the car in front.
So for me that was his need today, that was quite a major need that he had, because it would have helped him prepare for his clutch control and his stopping his coasting. It would have helped with appropriate speed going down Kilmarnock Road, when you had to kind of tell him to kind of ease off, and it was dangerous, you had to kind of do that. And it would have helped with that situation that we ended up in.
So even though he's coasting from 30 miles per hour, the forward planning is more pressing in that situation.
No, you're still right to work on that goal.
It was unreal. We were approaching the roundabout at 30 mile per hour, and he started, and he just put that clutch in and kept that bad boy in the whole. And I was like, no,
don't get me wrong, because I saw it later on as well. Of course, I felt it in the back. That's his goal. That's his topic. That's his goal. You're absolutely right to be working on that. But then, what it becomes from your job is to notice everything else that's going on in the car, and what's the biggest difference you can make to this guy's learning today, in terms of what's kind of happening. So I think a little bit of work on that would be good. Let me come back to your opinion of what went on though. So we've done the kind of good stuff and what you're happy with. What are you not happy with? What didn't go so well?
Let me run through that route. Putting them in a bad spot for parking, trying to get out of there. My goodness.
Lucky I was there.
Oh no. I couldn't sit doing that underneath. I was like, thank you, shit, thank you.
That was tough.
The next step was for me to get out and, you know, wave him back. You know, wouldn't have done that, of course.
I'd have done that myself. I would have parked there. If I needed to pull over, I would have done exactly the same. So there's nothing much you can do about it.
I've got a funny feeling I missed mirror checks.
Okay, tell me more.
The slowing down one.
Okay, mirrors change the speed.
Yeah, when it was having to change the speed, yeah.
Okay.
I wasn't paying enough attention to him. At that, like waiting, like obviously pointing things out and saying, but then not immediately looking to see that he was doing what he needed to do.
What about mirrors in terms of mirror signal? His mirror like turning major to minor, what about that?
How he did it?
Yeah. Do you think you were watching enough on that?
What, on his approaches?
Yeah.
I felt I was, yeah. I was seeing him check his mirrors, I was seeing him signal. It was that slowing down mirror, which I've got a funny feeling I missed some of that.
I think that's good awareness. I think you did miss a couple.
Mm-hmm.
I would add in as well, just something for you to add in. I think you're excellent at watching his mirror signal, position, speed, gear.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to just add in change of direction. So mirrors change direction. So when you've got him in the left hand lane and you want him to change to the right or right to left, you're really good at watching him.
Mm-hmm.
You need to just build in the ones where he's moving out slightly for a pothole to his right, not the ones where you're helping him, but if he sees something or he's moving slightly out for a pedestrian who's getting into your car, you're a little bit focused on the hazard.
Make sure he doesn't hit it.
Yeah, but you got to just make sure, what would I be checking as an advanced driver? Where would I be looking before I move? Well, yeah, I'd be checking that mirror before I move, because he's just missing that a wee bit. Mirrors change direction.
Yeah.
So that's something to build in. Anything else you feel you could have worked harder on today or done a bit better with?
Nothing I could think of.
Okay. So if we go through quickly on the lesson then, I like to kind of just have a think about what the key points in the lesson are. So sometimes we think about the key points in the lesson as being like a transfer of responsibility or safety criticals. That's just a very kind of simplified way that we think about it to start with. So we've already talked about the transfer of responsibility, which I agree you did well at the right time. He wanted 5, you gave him 5, that's fine, and then he took that on after that. What about potential safety criticals?
I'm going to try to think. Just driving it here. Just don't know if these observations there. I can't actually remember the first 20 minutes.
Okay, so I'll just give you it.
Go for it.
So that's speed going through Kilmarnock Roads into Pollock Shores Road.
Right.
After the junction.
Right.
Which he did really well with. He left that gap, and then he made it. You've just got a wee bit over keen, so that's okay. You could have done a wee bit of analysis on that, but it wasn't as important as what happened next. Because I think he got a bit impatient because he'd been sitting waiting for that long, and then he came out of that scenario and he just kind of got the foot down a wee bit, and he's trying to get up to 30. When we had all these parked cars on the left, and we had pedestrian shoppers.
Oh yeah, right, yeah. At the Y junction, and he went, yeah.
So actually,
right,
before that, you had to say to him, I think you put your hands up, and you had to say to him, like, be careful, this is really busy around here.
Yeah. And
he kind of slowed down a wee bit, and after that, he was still going on it a little bit. So for me, that's a need as well. That's potentially safety critical. If he's doing 30 in a bit where you would be doing 20, somewhere between 20 and 24 maybe, then that's probably something that we need to kind of pull over and discuss. Loads of opportunity there to possibly adapt a lesson for 10-15 minutes. Just driving around that area in Shawlands where it's really, really busy. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Now that you've flagged that up. Yeah, I had to get involved because it was potentially dangerous.
Yeah, you've had to say
So
something.
join the dots.
Yeah.
That needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, because if you don't intervene there,
not managing the risk.
and that also comes back to awareness and planning, though, isn't it? Because what we want eventually him to be doing is he comes through that nasty little junction bit, and then he's looking up ahead and assessing what's up ahead before he decides what speed he's going to go up to. We don't want him getting to 30 and then looking around and saying, oh, this is a bit busy, I'm going to bring my speed back down again. But if you can develop his awareness and planning to look ahead, gather information, and then make his decisions based on the information he's getting, I think that's probably the next step.
Okay.
How's that sound?
Makes sense.
You're working really hard in terms of, I mean, let me ask you, how hard on a scale of 1 to 10 have you worked on that lesson today?
Not as bad.
All right, okay.
Not as bad as the previous all-day mocks.
Okay.
But as I said, Harry was very shaky today. In hindsight now, it was a bit of a firefighting exercise at times.
I was exhausted for you at times.
Oh, it was a bit of a firefighting exercise having to...
but it shouldn't be that way.
Aye.
It shouldn't be that way. I kind of feel like if you find yourself, if we find ourselves firefighting and trying to do loads of stuff, particularly on the move, and this is like south side of Glasgow, it's really, really busy areas around here. If you're firefighting and starting to feel that kind of, my God, that's going on, then we're not really fully in control of the situation.
It was too busy for him.
It's too busy. It was too busy for you and all that work you're having to do.
Yeah.
Then it's definitely too busy for your learner.
Yeah.
And he's a really quiet guy, but he plays everything really cool. You don't get any signs of anxiety or stress from him. Another pupil might have had a little bit of a kind of breakdown and made a few more serious errors, which means you need to build up your self-awareness of what's happening in the car and what's happening outside, and say, right, okay, this is getting a little bit manic here. Let's just pull over, give your pupil a breather, but also give you a breather to spend some time, or just to kind of think, what's the most important thing here? And maybe if we'd done that at some point, we'd have thought, what's the most serious thing? Right, the serious thing there is his speed. Safety criticals tend to be like incorrect speed faults or position faults.
Yeah. And he almost did it when we turned right up there as we were heading towards school. It's obviously we go into a filter to turn right, but the people coming towards us go into a filter to turn right, and he was just blindly following the Fiesta or whatever it was, the white car, and was just diving straight into that. And I was like, oh no, we can't be doing that.
Yeah.
So that was another one of those safety criticals where I was like, damn, need to let that kind of almost go, because we had to head back. But obviously I flagged it up and let them know about it.
I think as well that's a bit of anticipation from driving instructors as well. That's a tricky wee situation. It's a bit of an unusual junction.
A bit more help.
A right hand lane. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Given you need to position the car. What's that?
Even just tell them. So we're turning right here, but we're just going to have to stay out. We can't go into that box there. It's okay to tell them. I think you've mentioned a couple of times about not instructing today.
And I've took it.
I think you've taken instruction and stuck it out the window a wee bit. And there are times that you could have made life a bit kind of easier for them, a little bit. That's going to sound really strange. So guys who watch these videos all the time act like I'm the coach here.
Finding the balance.
I think it's a line. I think things that you got to watch out for in terms of your Q&A technique. Do you know, if your pupil asks you a question, it's like, especially if we're sitting at traffic lights or we're approaching a roundabout, just answer them. Don't. That's them asking you for help, and we want them to ask us for help. If you ask him a question back, he's not going to ask you for help again. So there's no point in me asking for help because I don't get any. I just get a question back. So I would avoid that. If he asks you for help, tell him. And then probably the next thing on Q&A technique, your questions are really, really good, but it's like a machine gun.
Right. So I've went from
spray of questions.
So I went from
and I didn't see you before, so I've not.
You get
this is my first assessment with Robin.
So I went from over to under. That's funny. Okay.
Let me ask you something. I've asked you a couple of questions 5-10 minutes ago. What did I do after I asked you the question?
You asked me another, probably. You asked me what I thought, obviously. I can't remember.
I'm giving you time to answer.
Aye.
See these wee silences that we've got in the car?
Yeah.
There was no silences at all in your car today when you're having a conversation.
Yeah, well, my thinking was, well, if I ask him a question and he doesn't give me the answer, or he doesn't know the answer, not to just let him flounder, because we were in a kind of busy location, and obviously, you know, learners, they tend to do all this within thinking. So I guess that was kind of my thinking behind that. Not to, by all means, ask him questions, but not have him dwell on them too long.
Okay, so that's interesting. I think that's a fair enough comment. I guess my counter to that would be, if you're asking somebody a question and they are floundering, then you probably shouldn't have asked it on the move.
But you're checking knowledge there, no?
It depends. It depends what the question is. So the kind of, I guess the danger, I guess what I'm trying to get you to avoid is when you ask somebody a question, I've got a video about this, I'll send it to you.
There's a time and a place?
There is a time and a place, so early stage drivers, and I don't think Harry's an early stage driver, early stage drivers are always going to struggle with open questions, questions that make them think, because they're trying to concentrate really, really hard on their controls and their steering and their mirror signal manoeuvre. As pupils get better, they become more capable of answering open questions and having a think about it and doing things on the move, and nothing gets affected.
Gaining the knowledge as well.
He's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
He's not quite there yet. And I think you're not adapting
to that,
to his ability to answer you, which means you're asking him a question, and then when he's not answering you, you're asking him another question.
Try to rephrase that.
Yeah, and the kind of effect of that is Harry's sitting there thinking, right, Robert's asked me a question, oh my god, he's asked me another question, he's going to think I'm stupid. Oh my god, he's asked me another question, now that's 2 questions I don't know the answer to, this is really stressful, I wish you'd just tell me. So too many questions, you think you're, I've written down on your report, PDI needs to recognise when to support pupil versus trying to force independence. And you're trying
Say that again, sorry?
You need to recognise when to support the pupil,
right,
by telling and helping, versus trying to force independence. So there's a little bit, you're trying to force them to answer these questions and come up with the right answers and guess the word that's in your head. What was that one? You're asking towards the end about priority. So what do we not do? We don't take priority. Yeah, we get there eventually. And on the move, these can just be a little bit challenging. You know, he's still concentrating on his drive.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to get it in was before we came across all those parked cars. Yeah. Because we had a nice wee gap there where there really wasn't much going on. I knew the parked cars and those buses that batter down that road at 30 mile an hour. So I thought, if I don't get it in now, I'm going to end up just telling them, look, you have to slow down. And then I was thinking, I'm going to fall into that full instruction, doing the instructing too much. But at least if I can get them to, if I can ask them the question I can at least get his mind working. And then if his mind, you know, if he flounders in the actual situation, then that's fine. But in my opinion, I've at least done my bit to try and see if I can get him thinking.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with that, 100%. But it only takes one question to get him thinking. And then you just got to hold that space. You got to let him
think.
Yeah, because not everyone. You're a very fast talker. You process things really quickly, and if he asks you a question, you're back at him like that. But not everybody's like that. If you ask me a question, I'm not going to answer it straight away. I'm going to do that thing in my head, and I'm going to look out the window, and I'm going to have a really good think about it, because I need time to process and think about what I'm going to say back to my head, even more so if I'm driving.
So ask a question, wait for an answer.
Yeah, and this is coaching. Do you know, this is about providing a safe space for somebody.
Is that I'm trying to cajole them into the right answer?
And yeah.
But that's okay to do, but just don't try and do it in the space of 10 seconds.
And don't do it all the time. Kind of leading questions you're using, isn't it? And it's difficult. It's a tricky skill. Q&A is one of the hardest kind of skills to kind of get a grip on. I realise it's really annoying to be told that you're maybe asking too many questions.
No.
Given
it all makes sense though.
Instruction.
All the things you're saying, it's like, well, he's got a point there. And yeah, he's got a point there.
It's about.
So it's not like I'm sitting here going, what the hell's he talking about? He's contradicting himself.
Yeah, it's about just having a bit more thought about the effect it's having on your pupil. And if we notice anything going wrong with the drive when we're asking these questions, and I didn't see much of that today, but if he wasn't as competent a driver as he is, you're going to start distracting your pupil.
Well, that's the thing, you know, when you're taking people out, you know, these brand new learners, you can only really question them when you pull them over. Because they, as you says, they can't think, you know. So how do you think your steering was there? How do you think you did with going round the corner? Do you think we ended up in a good place? What happens if we're going all the what ifs and all that consequences? But as you said, Harry's in that middle stage now, where if I was to pull him over, he could give me all the right answers. So it's now just about trying to get him to think on the move a bit more. And obviously I've just took it a bit too far.
Yeah, just play about with it.
And wait for an answer before I start with the next question.
Because you may answer it perfectly. You give him 5 more seconds.
Give him some time.
You may answer it perfectly and then we're fine.
Because I think if I ask a question and he goes then I think, right, well, he's not quite understanding what I'm meaning. So that's how I rephrase it dead quickly. Just to try and get, think, but obviously it's probably confusing him more than anything else.
Potentially. There's no hard and fast rules to this, but I would always bank on just giving him a little bit more time to think than asking him a second question, because then he's got to start again.
By the thought process.
Yeah, and it's not. We think it's going to be quicker, but it's actually not, because we're giving them twice as much work to do now. And all that processing he's done for the first question was a waste of time. Okay, right, we'll move on from that, but that's probably one of the top kind of pieces of advice I've got from your report. Safety criticals we touched on. We talked about this in our meeting, about kind of how we analyse kind of faults like that are safety critical. So appropriate speed going through Kilmarnock Road. We're wanting them to have a think. We want to ask some questions about, what speed what would have been an appropriate speed kind of driving through Kilmarnock Road there. Why is that? Why do we want that?
Didn't do that.
Speed?
Just told them to slow down and that was it.
Yeah. So
not thinking about it.
Yeah. And I can see some analysis in other areas. I can't remember, but I can see some analysis going on there.
When he turned left and then we nosed in to the base. Yeah. Oh, his positioning wasn't good for the left turn. Okay. So that position, it was okay, but it could have been better.
Could have been better, but in the grand scheme of things, that's not as important as driving at 30 past Shawlands Arcade with the shoppers getting in and out of their cars. So that's what prioritising. What does this guy need right now that's going to have the biggest effect on his driving? Being a safe driver. What else do we have? And lots of little things going on. This goes back to the kind of Q&A thing as well, it touches on it. lots of little things going on and you're trying to fix everything, and that's why it ends up, you like the phrase you used was firefighting, and yeah, I know exactly how you kind of felt there, and he probably feels that way as well. Whereas if we pull over for a couple of minutes and talk about appropriate speed, and then we just go and work on appropriate speed, it just calms everything down. We've got one focus in mind. I'm a little bit unsure what the goal for the second half of the lesson was.
Well, he was doing it independently, and then he did the one big coast, and then he did 2 good ones. So it says, that's, you got 2 good ones, you give me another 3, but then it was time to...
Okay. So I think you needed something bigger to move him on to after he'd
would
done
have been
his,
forward planning.
his coasting. It probably should have been forward planning.
So even though he wanted 5, I don't need to wait until he does 5 good ones. I can just... Because for me, if he says he wants to do 5 and he makes a real big mess of one, which that one wasn't just a wee bit early, it was really quite bad how early it was. In my mind, I reset that counter back to 0, and I want 5 good ones before.
So I mean,
even though he's... Is that...
So what you're doing is you're focusing on his goal, but we're not
Well, I'm focusing on his need. His need is to not coast.
But is, in the grand scheme of things, is driving too fast down Kilmarnock Road a greater need? It's about prioritising.
Right.
The goals are important. We've got to work towards the goals. We've got to get them taking responsibility. But then, if we need,
so it's a lack of adaptation there.
Yeah. I think it's adapting the lesson.
Right.
Or he was doing fine on what 90% of his coasts. It was later on that he had the bad one that I felt. Anyway, maybe there's another one. I think the opportunities that just missing the opportunity to make a real difference on his driving with awareness planning and appropriate speed. These were the 2 kind of big missed opportunities, I think. Do you have anything on that?
No, to be honest, what you're saying all kind of clicks, you know.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Do you see what I'm doing here? I asked
You're just
you a question,
shutting up. Yeah,
and you're the kind of person. You're actually the
I'd have
kind of person
already.
that needs to think. But you're the kind of person I'm talking about. You need time to think about these questions the same as I do.
When you ask me, I'm actually analysing the whole thing that happened.
So that's what I want you to do in the car with your learners.
Okay.
If it's especially on something like a safety kind of issue as well, and give them the opportunity to figure it out.
I'm very keen when I'm doing these mocks and these part 3s, and I think it's, you know, it's the situation where I'm not wanting to waste time.
Yeah.
And I think it all goes back to that whole thing about, oh, it must be wheels turning for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
When it doesn't.
Yeah.
It just needs to be a 45 minute lesson. And I've always felt that that's been a problem. And it was the same thing when I was recording the video for Lee. The minute that recording came on, I was like, right, let's go.
Yeah.
And very much keen to get going when it doesn't need to be like that.
It doesn't, and I guess one way of explaining that, that's really common with PDIs, you just want to show the person who's watching you how good you are.
Aye.
Well, I'm going to teach them.
Yeah.
Whereas what we actually need is a bit more laser focus instead of the machine gun. And if you laser focus on his awareness and planning and fixing his appropriate speed through those busy areas, and that's all you deal with today, along with the goal, which is coasting, we can do that as well.
So they don't then, so that situation with, I mean, his awareness and planning wasn't that bad, but see the speeding thing, would that not then override the original goal? Because I had to tell him to slow down.
So I think of it as pausing the lesson.
So you'd basically put that to one side.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's pause this at the moment.
Okay.
Because we need to talk about this. Let's go and have a chat about it and pull over and talk.
But then you don't work on it at the same time.
I mean, I think it's kind of I for the sake of simplicity, I would get his speed sorted and get his knowledge and awareness and his skill back up. If it is normally fine, get that fixed, and then we can go back to it. Just keep it simple. Yeah.
Okay.
So, a bit more laser focused on the priorities, his needs, in terms of safety, potential safeties, and things that would genuinely help him the most, which is the planning and awareness, but then also his needs around his goal are important as well. And then, I'm just kind of conscious of time here, Robert. I'm going to give you one more piece of feedback, if that's okay, because that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
You need to be careful with being a little bit kind of judgmental with your Q&A.
Has like the tone or?
The tone sometimes, and it's a really easy trap to fall into when you've got a good relationship with your pupil, which you clearly have, and it's like a bit of banter and a bit of kind of, did you not see that? Come on, what are you playing at there? But that's the kind of thing that's going to lose you some points on that non-discriminatory manner throughout the session. So just a couple of times there, he's making mistakes, he's a wee bit nervous because I'm sitting in the back, and you're asking him questions that, patronising is not the right word, the right word will come to, but I've written some of these down with his indicator. So did you not hear that? So do we need to ask that question? Do we need to, how do you think he feels when you ask him a question like, did you not hear that?
I see what you mean, yeah.
There was something else, this might have been indicated as well. I had to lean across and do that for you. And it just kind of, it's like he's made a mistake, that's fine, but you're kind of like digging him in the ribs.
Right.
While he's there.
Rather than just stating the fact.
Yeah.
What's that noise?
Rather than how can we get that, do something like how can we get that right the next time, which you mentioned earlier on. That's a good question. So it's not about having a go at them for getting it wrong. It's about, we've still got to keep that encouragement up. And I get it, you've clearly got a really good relationship with the guy. But let's just let's keep lifting them up instead of having a wee go at them.
Okay.
For other reasons, is that fair? Non-discriminatory manner as well. Just again, really difficult. The guy in the BMW obviously shouldn't have been doing a turn in the road there in the middle of. Doesn't matter how nice his car is. But just wee things like, no bother, pal. You're all right.
All right, aye. Really, just
that's just a wee kind of sarcastic kind of response that we don't want your pupils picking up from you. They get that kind of stuff sitting in the car with their dads or their mums. Our job as instructors is to teach people to be kind of non-confrontational, just ease off, give the guy some room. There's going to be worse situations like that, and we don't want that response ramping up.
Yeah,
if that guy had done the turn on the road and you'd been forced to dual brake, then you're almost saying it's alright to comment. But because that was worse, my comment's going to be worse.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So we don't need that commentary on
other people.
On that judgment. We don't need that judgment on that. And again, just try and work on a wee bit of self-awareness. Same as your Q&A, a wee bit of self-awareness on how your comments could potentially impact on your pupil. Okay. Your job's to build them up. Is that alright? Okay, yeah. Good stuff. No, that's fine. Right, thanks for letting us record the feedback. Really appreciate it. We're going to watch the time now. We'll turn this off. And yeah, thanks very much. Cheers. Okay. No worries. Alright.